Even the sonic screwdriver won't get me out of this one. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the 6-part adventure, The Invasion of Time, with the writing credits going to a David Agnew, who doesn't actually exist. The real writers are the script editor Anthony Reid and series producer Graham Williams, and is directed by Gerald Blake. This sees the departure of Leela, and it sees the Doctor return to Gallifrey, and picks up a lot of events right after the Deadly Assassin, the last time the Doctor has appeared on it. And in terms of the fan base, this story has a very interesting, thing, if you ask me. When it came out, it was hugely praised by the fans, the TV critics, and just everybody seemed to absolutely love it. And it was like that for many years. In some of the Doctor Who polls for the magazine, it would be up highly in the polls, and it will always be the #1 story of this season. But in the recent years, since I would say 2010, from my experience, I don't know about you, but I start hearing a lot of people say that it's overrated. In fact, one of my friends, who's a big Doctor Who fan, absolutely hates this story. And I've heard a lot of YouTubers who say that this story is beloved, and if you enjoy that, that's cool, but they hate it. Sorry, I can just see a glare there, so I'm just going to move that out of the way. Sorry about that. Anyway, and also as well, in terms of my personal thing, I always remember watching this on VHS. This is the one that I grew up with. So maybe it's no surprise to say that I absolutely love this story. My God, it's brilliant. The episode 1 kicks off extremely well and helps bring the story forward. We actually enter the story halfway through a meeting between the Doctor and the Vargans, that's one. And we don't actually know what the whole situation is. We just see the Doctor sign away a contract as he tells Leela and K9 to stay in the TARDIS, and Leela can't use the television screen because K9 has been ordered to keep the screen closed. And the Doctor, you can hear the Doctor talking, and he says stuff about like how when this is all done, he will be the owner of Gallifrey. And the Vargans are like, yes, yes, it will all be yours, just work for us, we will be your new masters. And so the story starts off with the Doctor basically being a bad guy for the majority of the story, and we don't really know why. And this brings out some of Tom Baker's most bizarre Tom Bakery moments. As I've stated before, it was really the Graham Williams era in which the show went from its golden age with Philip Hinchcliffe to what we dub the Tom Baker Show, where Tom Baker seemed to have massive control of the show, and it felt more like Tom Baker than Doctor Who. And here, though I do really love the 4th Doctor in this and the way he's just mad, I do understand the criticisms that the Doctor is a bit too, like, he knows everything, and he seems to be one step of everyone, including the audience. But it keeps the story really interesting, and it delivers some of the most funniest lines. One of my favourites is when the Doctor goes back into the TARDIS. Leela's asking him all these questions, and he tells Leela to tell K9 to tell Leela to shut up. Leela actually walks to K9 and starts the question to give the demand, and then the doctor's like, Leela's like, hey, wait a minute. But before she can turn around and argue with the doctor, K9 actually gets his gun out, and Leela is forced to be quiet. And so it brings a huge dilemma into this story. So we get the doctor going into Gallifrey, and he starts off as a criminal, but as some of you may remember from the Deadly Assassins, he actually participated into becoming the next president of Time Lord Society, and because his rival candidate, Chancellor Goth, turned out to be working for the Master and is now deceased, it makes the Doctor the current president of Time Lord Society. Yes, and it's just absolutely mental, and there's a lot of scenes in which the Doctor's talking to Brucer, a character who returns, now played by a different actor from The Deadly Assassins, the Doctor's old teacher. And so there's a lot of scenes in which the Doctor is just mean, and he's just shouting. There's a lot of great shouting moments of the Fourth Doctor, which really emphasises that something is off. And he also commands that Leela get chucked out of the capital and leaves the society. But before that, he invites her to his ceremony, in which he gets linked up to the Matrix. So this is the first real mention of the Matrix, in which it has basically it's a giant computer of all Time Lord knowledge, and when you become the president, your mind becomes interlinked with the Matrix, and so whoever the president is gets to control all the knowledge in Time Lord Society, or at least knows all of Time Lord Society. But the Doctor starts linking up, but it rejects him, and so there's this whole debate and stuff, and then this is when the Doctor chucks Leela out. So this is probably a good time to talk about Leela in this story. Obviously, as I've stated, this is her final story, and for a final story, it's actually really good. A lot of people criticise them, which I will get to the criticisms at the end of the story, in which she actually leaves. But her actions throughout the story really justifies her character, this savage person. And what I like about this particular story is that in most cases it's the Doctor trying to teach Leela to be more respectful, to be more, I don't want to say normal, but you get my gist. But here, the Doctor actually uses her and her personality to his advantage, to his skill, to his plan, in which he was gonna send Leela on this mission, basically to go out and recruit a bunch of other savages, the Shawogans, which I don't think they are named Shawogans in this story. They are mentioned in the Deadly Assassins, and these are confirmed to be the Shawogans in the Timeless Child. People who reject Time Lord Society but are Gallifreyans. So there you go, that's really cool. So yeah, and so slowly, like, the Doctor starts shouting. He makes these weird demands on one of the Chancellors to make his room made completely out of, I believe it was lead, but I could be wrong. And at one point, the Doctor gets K9 to loosen the shield so that the Vargans can actually come in and enter the TARDIS, Time Lord Society. And the cliffhanger for part 2 is probably one of the most, I don't know if it's the most iconic, because a lot of people don't talk about it, but it personally sticks out in my mind, in which the Doctor summons all the highest leaders of Time Lord Society, and he says, let me introduce you to your new masters. And he gets on one knee, and everybody gets on one knee. And then the Vargan shapes appear, and the Doctor starts just giggling like a mad villain. And that's our cliffhanger for part 2. So it sets up this story in which the Vargans are basically already control. They've technically already won because they control the Doctor, and the Doctor's the president. So let's talk about the Vargans, because a lot of people criticise this story, or mainly the effects, in which they use a sort of filter effect with a tinfoil to represent the Vargans in their like astral projection form. And a lot of people say it looks terrible, but rewatching the story, I don't think it's that bad. I actually think for the 1970s, it looks pretty decent, and especially how they align it with certain scenes. Like there's one sitting on a chair, which I just find absolutely hilarious, and it slowly reveals that these aren't the actual Vargans, and they turn out to just be like human-looking beings wearing like these military costumes. And I like the Doctor's reaction in that it's a bit disappointing. And it's revealed that the Vargans can control or read people's minds. They can control any sort of wavelength. And so it explains why the Doctor was acting really erratic in this story. He was trying to block out the Vargans from getting into his mind as he talks to Barusa in his room, now covered in lead, which stops any radio waves from getting in and out. And he explains that he couldn't just tell anybody because they might give away the secret, and the Doctor's talented at basically distracting himself, and he demonstrates this by shouting at Barusa for a cup of tea. So like I said, a lot of really weird moments like that. There's even a great scene earlier on in the story in which the Doctor's basically locked in the Presidency's room, and he's talking as if Barusa's sitting down, which is another Tom Baker moment in which like he's one step ahead of everyone. And that scene alone is just, Tom Baker's just fantastic throughout this entire story. And so the Doctor starts revealing, and Leela sets off the rebellion, and the Doctor plugs himself back into the Matrix so that he can find out the Vargan's home planet is, so he can send their astral projections back to their home planet and save Gallifrey, to which he does. And that ends part 4. Now, before I begin, I just want to say massive spoiler. So if you don't want spoilers for the Invasion of Time, turn away now, because the rest of the story is, the rest of this video is a spoiler-filled video. So the Doctor defeats the Vargans, and he's about to set off, and he's chatting with all of the rebels, and he's saying how amazing he is at saving the day. But they're all looking at something else, something over there, and they're all looking concerned. And the Doctor gets interrupted into his speech and is like, what are you looking at? And he turns around, and then suddenly a Sontara, 3 Sontarans with one of them putting their gun up, is on Gallifrey, and that ends part 4. Sorry. So parts 5 and 6 are basically a Sontaran story, and the way this is set up to have the Sontarans as a surprise villain at the very end, I think could have worked. I really like the idea of the story having like a surprise, like feeling like it's going to end. I mean, most Doctor Who stories were 4 parts at that time, and then all of a sudden the story continues with a much bigger threat. I really like that, because we're not used to the Doctor going bye-bye, bye-bye, and then getting interrupted there. So you feel like your story is finished, but then it's not. It continues for 2 more episodes. The problem is when you rewatch it, because the Vargans and the Sontaran elements feel so separated that it doesn't feel like a Sontaran story with them just appearing at the end. It feels like a completely different story has just interrupted the ending. And the entire feel of it just completely changes. And in terms of the plot, we don't actually know what's connecting with them. The Sontarans explain that that the Vargans were a great distraction, that they were a pawn in their plan. But there was never any indication that something else was on top of them, or anything else was being a part of it. We just felt like the Vargans were the head up of the villain chain. So let's talk about Gerald Blake's directing. He does a fantastic job here. Some of you may know that he did the second Doctor story, The Abominable Snowman, which he has some great atmospheric scenes in that one. And here, there's a lot of great moments. One of my favourite scenes in terms of directing is just the Doctor's coronation. That whole scene is brilliant, and I love the music in it. And you can see that a lot of the budget went to this story, with a lot of sets and a lot of whooshing. Well, no, I wouldn't say whooshing, but for BBC 70s, a lot of whooshing camera angles. However, the last 2 episodes, the directing feels like it's taken a massive dip in quality. That could be because the new TARDIS interior, in which the Doctor, in part 6, the Doctor, Leela, Brucer, and 2 Time Lords that they befriend, I believe they're called Andrad and Roden. Roden, it's a fun fact, is the second female Time Lord to ever appear on Doctor Who, just after Susan Foreman herself. And so they're in it, and the Sontarans are basically chasing them. And for some reason, instead of using what has been used before, in which they used pieces of the TARDIS roundel thing circles as the corridor, they actually decided to use real stone corridors, and it feels really jarring. Although there are some great moments where they go into the Doctor's sort of like indoor jungle. Them bits actually shot really cool, but a lot of the corridor scenes are very blandly directed. And so the Sontaran element is really weak in this story. They just seem to be stomping and shouting at people, and compared to how great the Vargans were throughout the story, going to these Sontarans just feels like a downgrade. And so when a lot of people say that they don't like this story, they mainly talk about the last 2 episodes. And I do kind of agree, it is weaker compared to... It is a huge down drop to the last 4 episodes. But to say that it's bad, I don't think that's justified. I think there are some really great moments and a lot of great quirky moments. Like, I like how when Leela's talking about deja vu, and the Doctor, there's a great moment where the Doctor and the crew, they go into a corridor with a bunch of doors, and the Doctor's like, quick, everybody pick a door and go through it. And they all go through it, and they all end up in the same place. So that's really cool. And the Doctor sets up this gun, which is like the ultimate gun, to which he made with the Great Key, which was held by Brucer. And we never really know what it does, apart from making people dead. But we don't know anything about it, like does it reverse time and all that. As Bruce says, it's the most dangerous weapon ever created in the history of the universe. But we never really feel it. It just seems like just a big gun. And so the Doctor uses it to kill the one Sontaran, and then he meets up with the main Sontaran. And that's a really great confrontation where the Sontaran's talking about like he will literally destroy Gallifrey with himself just for the glory of the Sontarans. And I like how the Doctor's basically, he's got him at gunpoint. He can easily stop him, but he's constantly talking to the Sontaran and trying to talking to the Sontaran about why he's justifying his death to destroy Gallifrey. So you could see that the Doctor's trying to not do anything he can to not use this weapon, but he does. He shoots the Sontaran, and the day is saved. And yeah, it's a really great story. So I really enjoyed it. But let's talk about what everybody really wants to talk about: Leela's departure. Yeah, a lot of people really don't like this story for the main fact of Leela's departure, and I 100% agree. Her final scene is just so stupid. Basically, the Doctor's about to head off, but Leela decides to stay. And when the Doctor asks her why, she puts her hand behind her, and Andrad, the character that they were teaming with, holds her hand, implying that they are in a relationship. And the Doctor's like, "Oh, I see. Don't forget me then. Bye," and goes into the TARDIS. K9 Mark 1 stays with Leela, only for the Doctor to reveal Mark 2, and which is the final moments where the Doctor laughs at the screen, implying that the K9 Mark 2 is coming. And what's really... So yeah, that's really disappointing that my favourite companion left in such a stupid way, because her and Andrad, they do have some scenes together and they do get along very well, but nothing implies a relationship. And for her to leave because of this relationship just felt like just a last minute addition to it. And personally, I would have been completely fine with that. Yeah, despite me hating the idea, I would have been completely fine. I understand, like, with contracts and all that, you may have to rush it and stuff. And you could make an argument that there were some nice scenes to them and she just befriends him and the relationship developed off screen, which is still a stupid thing, but, you know, you can argue for it. But what really gets me and why I can't justify it is because there is such a better way in this story. She could have left and they didn't decide to do it. What do I mean? Well, throughout the story, she teams up with the rebels outside of the capital, a group of savages like her, and she basically learns to be like, she basically fits in, and where other Time Lords seem very out of place, struggling to defend themselves and understanding their way of living, Leela seems to completely get it, like as if she's been there all her life. And they could have easily just said that she misses being like around people herself. She doesn't like being around with the Doctor, and she kind of misses, not that she doesn't like being around the Doctor, but she kind of misses being around her own type of people. So yeah, and that would have been a fantastic way of ending it. Her career, that would have been a great way to finish her story arc. But no, she decides that Andred, this guy she met for about 4 hours in terms of the story's time, that she's in love with him so much that she would leave the Doctor and their adventures. And yeah, that's really disappointing. But that's not the end of Leela for us, as we'll be seeing her a few times when I get onto the Gallifrey spin-off series, which I will be tackling. And yeah, so overall, this story I have really loved. It has, especially parts 1 to 4 are amazing. I really like the scenes with the 4th Doctor and Leela. Leela gets a lot to do in this story, and she's my favourite companion. And I like her little side plot. The Doctor's just mad in this one. And just to see him just basically own the Time Lords just is sweet. However, it's not amazing. The last 2 episodes really downgrade it. The Sontarans aren't as strong as they should be as a recurring villain. And Leela's departure is just one of the most stupid ideas that I have ever seen in Doctor Who. So there you go. So that's the invasion of time. So join me next time where the Doctor's getting sent to a quest across time and space. And he befriends a new companion. And we say hello to a Romana. So join me next time for the Repos operation. See you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.